Hi, continue with today's thought. And today's thought is actually a diversion from the thought that I had planned. I was going to talk about a particular subject. I hope to do it tomorrow, but the Hunter Biden verdict came in on the gun charges, and I was just going to mention it in passing because I had to say something about it, and I was starting to say enough about it that it really made sense to devote a thought to it. So that's going to be the thought for today. The Hunter Biden verdict, we've all heard about it by now. We must have found guilty, all three counts, and found guilty on all three of them. Now, I'm not going to, I want to talk about the politics of it, basically. We have to be fair. It's Hunter Biden, Joe's son, and it's not Joe Biden himself. So it's just his son. But it's going to be interesting to see how this affects the election. It shouldn't affect anybody's vote, but what it might affect is the Democratic attacks on, the whole idea was to get Trump convicted of something and then just call him convicted felon. Well, we're going to see if they can still do that, because now every time they say Trump convicted felon, the Republicans can say, well, Joe's son, Hunter, is a convicted felon. And when people talk about, this is, I guess, where you really get into the implications, people will say, well, is Trump going to be, will he go to jail? How much jail will he get? Blah, blah, blah. And they say, well, interesting question. What about Hunter? Will he go to jail? How much jail will he get? Will the president pardon him? Because he said he wouldn't. But, and an interesting irony is today, the day of the verdict, the day before you're seeing this, later today, hasn't happened yet, but later today, Joe Biden is going to be giving a speech on, guess what? Gun control. So it's going to be interesting to see what Joe says about gun control now, about now that his son has been, and this is the existing, Republicans can say, well, look, your own son was convicted. All the gun laws that we have now, they're obviously working, so we don't need any more. It's working on your son. So there's just a whole, potential target rich environment. Plus, what if it's pretty obvious that, I'm not going to go into the details. Alan Dershowitz has spoken a lot about this, and he does a podcast, and it's called The Der Show. Dershowitz, Der Show, get it? So you can go on YouTube or whatever and find what he's said in the past about it. But there have been enough, even liberal commentators, legal experts, saying that the whole trial is ridiculous. And you may have heard that there a Facebook post, a couple of them surfaced, of somebody, a Michael, somebody other, saying, I'm a cousin of one of the jurors. This is before the verdict was in, saying that we're going to convict Trump. So there's a potential. They're investigating that to see whether this is some troll or whether it actually is a cousin. But if that pans out, then I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that there would be at least potential grounds for declaring a mistrial, because that is unlawful, and you don't do that. And being unlawful, the jury whose cousin this person is, that person, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, that person is guilty of a felony. So that would be ironic, concocting this, turning a misdemeanor into a felony, that had he been allowed to testify, the former head of the Federal Election Commission, he would have testified that there was no crime there. There's nothing there. Plus, it's a federal crime, and a Manhattan DA doesn't get to prosecute, has no jurisdiction over federal crimes. The whole thing is ridiculous. My point is that very likely Trump's conviction will be will be overturned, will be reversed, if not by a New York court, because they're all Democrats, then a federal court, and perhaps it might go all the way to the Supreme Court, because they're constitutional. There are violations, at least two I can think of that legal experts have commented on, at least two violations of Trump's constitutional rights. If you put a request in the comments section, I'll talk more about it. But the point that I'm making now is Trump's conviction gets reversed, so he's no longer a convicted felon, but Hunter Biden is. That would be, I have to say I wouldn't complain about that. Not that I want to, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think Hunter Biden would go to jail either. But you can see what a travesty it would be if the judge in Trump's trial, totally nonviolent, no guns involved, sentences him to jail, but Hunter Biden does not get sentenced to jail. It's a first offense in both cases, so I would hope that neither one would be sentenced to jail. And in both cases, Trump and Hunter, to be fair, that both of their sentences would be suspended while they appeal. Because, I don't want to go off. Well, I will right now. Why it would be unjust? Because let's say if the judge, we'll stick with Trump for now. If the judge Merchan sentences Trump to a year in jail and makes him go to jail right away, and the appeal takes more than a year, and then the appeal is successful and the conviction is overturned, then what good does it do? Trump will have already served the term. He doesn't get the time back. So you see why it would be unfair in Trump's case. And the same logic applies to Hunter Biden. His appeals will take time too. So you have to be fair to both sides, and that it will be interesting to see if there is going to be fairness in both sides, because we're talking about two different judges in two different jurisdictions. And what I've seen so far, the judge in Delaware, Noreika, has been much more fair than this Judge Merchan in New York, who is an out-and-out partisan Democrat, no doubt about it, and it governs the way he conducts his trials. So we're going to have to see what happens. But if Trump is, and the big issue is that if it's going to be overturned for Trump, well, it would be true in any case, but Trump's appeals really should be heard before the election, because it would be a real travesty. Hunter is not running for office, but Trump, if he loses a close election because of this conviction, and then it's overturned, reversed after the election, Lord knows what's going to happen in this country, how Trump supporters are going to react, because then you could definitely say 100% that the election was stolen, that he was unjustly. Remember, if it's repealed, that means that first verdict was an unjust verdict. And so unjustly convicted, and it cost him the election, but we don't find out till it's over. Very real travesty. But getting back to Hunter Biden, since that's the subject today, it's just going to be interesting to see if anything happens going forward. I don't see it as a campaign issue for Republicans at all, but I do see it as a response, something that's what I really want to see, whether it's going to quiet the calling Trump a convicted felon. It's kind of like when the Congress passes, or anybody talks about, whenever not Republicans when they do it, but when a Democrat condemns anti-Semitism, they always say anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, which is virtually non-existent in this country, but they don't want to acknowledge how serious anti-Semitism is in this country right now, I'm sorry to say. So same thing. People will, if you're a Republican being interviewed and brings up the Trump conviction or calls him a convicted felon, then bring up Hunter Biden. And the interviewer, or if the interviewer is a Democrat, we'll say, well, that's not, it's Hunter Biden's son. It's not relevant, yada, yada, yada. But the reference will have been out there because the person would already have said that. And just keep mentioning, just drive the liberals crazy. Just say every time they mention Donald Trump's conviction, just mention, ignore whatever the Democrat says and just mention Hunter Biden. Hey, Hunter Biden, what do you think is going to happen to Hunter Biden? Well, I guess that's my thought for today. Thanks for, I'm interested to hear your comments. There's a comment section below the video. But that's my thought for today. If you could subscribe, that would really be great. Share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.